You absolutely cannot live the extraordinary life that you hope for, whether you're as a leader, whether as a business owner, whether as an employee, without having good boundaries. I'm Suzanne Rath, and this is Endures, for your daily dose of endurance, leadership, and life lessons. And today I'm running you through my boundary setting worksheet, which I am preparing for a presentation to a group of local business owners in Cairns on Friday. Because the truth is that without boundaries, we can never actualize our potential. We can't achieve what's meaningful to us in life. And we end up just burning out before we reach the summit or before we recover from the climb to whatever we're doing. And so if you're looking at the video, you'll see a couple of my models, which I will have shared on the podcast previously. And I won't get into these now, except to touch on the 3 core outcomes that I am really passionate about, which are unshakable focus, unstoppable momentum, and actualized potential. And to achieve these 3 things, which lead us to life's ultimate summits, there's 9 core catalysts. And each one of those catalysts has a tangible solution. So a whole ton of unique things that I have brought together that I work on with my clients in keynotes, in workplace workshops, to help people to thrive rather than just surviving. So not just leadership, but creating the legacy and the life that people had hoped for. And when I look at these 9 catalysts, if I run through them super briefly, or even a couple of them, boundaries are such an essential part for every one of them. So Envision Peak is about clarity on where we're going. And once we have clarity on where we're going, that enables us to be clearer on our boundaries, but it's also essential that we set our boundaries and stick to them so we're not getting dragged off onto other paths all the time. And if we look at anchoring conviction, this is all around our values and conviction to, where we need to be. It's all about navigation, the steps that we take. And again, we have to have strong boundaries to have conviction. And sometimes knowing our values enables us to set better boundaries around things. And then if we look at, say, how we adapt our pace. So this is about resilience and grit and determination, but it's also about knowing when to push or when to pivot or when to change pace. And again, we need really strong boundaries so that we're not just endlessly pushing through. And so in this worksheet, which again is downloadable for free on my website homepage, suzannerath.com.au, I have just put in a brand new quadrant, which is not currently on the downloadable version. But if you watch this video on YouTube or Substack, you will see it. And it's a little bit like the Eisenhower matrix. So to start to identify the things that you may wish to set boundaries around, having a look at your calendar and thinking to yourself, what have I done in the last day or the last week that is truly energizing? Work, home, play, whatever. And what sits in the area that is energizing, but anyone can do it. So, this is stuff that's nice to do and brings you joy. But if it comes down to it, you could probably delegate it to someone else. If you really need to leverage your time, you could outsource some of it to someone else. Then in the top right quadrant, there's the things that are energizing, but only you can do. So they're obviously essential. This is kind of where your genius zone meets your values, meets your vision, meets, what lights you up, meets your purpose, meets your flow, right? All of those things. And probably what you need to do is set boundaries to keep more of that in your diary. And then in the bottom left of the quadrant, we have the things that are draining, but anyone can do. And I urge you And I thought about this while I was doing this quadrant. A couple of things that I need to start getting rid of in that quadrant. Get rid of them. Find a VA. See who else can do them. Delegate them, delete them, defer them, whatever the case might be. And then in the bottom right quadrant, there's the things that are draining that only you can do. Now, we all need to do stuff that we don't necessarily want to do in life. And so sometimes you might need to eat the frog and do those things. Time block it, get it done. Maybe give yourself a little bit of a reward after. Catch up with a friend to do it, whatever the case might be. Sometimes it might be a case that we can train somebody else, somebody more skilled, to do those things over time so that we can actually offload them. But this is a really good thing to see what you need to set boundaries around. Now, boundaries in the worksheet, it gives you a bit of a rundown on understanding boundaries and the types of boundaries. So in there, I have things like physical, so physical space, emotional, not taking on people's emotions, time, so setting aside time. There's also boundaries around things like belongings. Some people might be happy to lend someone a book and never expect it back. And some people might remember years later that that person never gave the book back. It's just identifying what's meaningful to you and what really matters to you. I've also got some questions in there for the type of things to identify your boundaries. And that's things like situations that make you feel uncomfortable, people you struggle to say no to, areas of life that you feel overcommitted, and maybe the consequences when your boundaries are crossed. And in it too, I mentioned before anchoring conviction and how one part of how we anchor conviction is getting clear on our values. And the best way that I recommend to find your values is free. It's with the John Demartini Values Assessment online. And values are a really good decision-making framework. There's also an idea of doing a time tracking tool, for example. And in the worksheet, we also practice boundary setting statements. So this is something that people really struggle with because sometimes they set boundaries and they defer the decision till later. And if you listen to my podcast on attention residue, what that actually does is it doesn't close the loop in the brain. So if I give you an example, if I said, oh, thanks for inviting me to that thing. Yeah, I'm not quite sure yet. I might decide later. That's fine if I'm genuinely not sure. But if I know that it's a definite no, and I'm saying, oh, I'll decide later, that thing lives in my brain because I haven't closed the loop. So that's the mental load. There's strong potential the person's going to follow up, which is going to increase the mental load. It's going to be several other emails or texts or phone calls or whatever that I need to contend with. And my brain is just taking on that attention residue. So it seems like a small thing, but delaying the boundary or setting, the boundary sandwich of, oh yeah, I'll get back to you, maybe next time, and so on, sometimes isn't the right way to go about it. So I always encourage clear, respectful, direct communication. And noting that language is powerful. So where focus goes, energy flows. So instead of saying, I don't have time or money, just simply saying, thanks for thinking of me. I'm actually prioritizing other things right now. Full stop. No excuses, no blame, no denial. Just very simple, very clear. You don't need to explain yourself in life. And honestly, if you are needing to explain yourself to people on repeat, then you probably need stronger boundaries around it. Unless, of course, it's your job and you're just not doing your job right. So in the worksheet, and in life, I also recommend that people maintain and review a boundary plan reasonably regularly. So as I mentioned before, when I put in the quadrant model, which you can very easily replicate and copy yourself, I thought about some things that actually go in that, I could really train my VA to do that category. And so getting these things out of your brain onto paper, brain dumping them, and seeing them in black and white, where you are squandering your time, your energy, your resources, your peace, is really, really powerful. And so at the end of this, and at the end of my talk on Friday, I will be inviting people to think about the future that they are choosing. So if we think about having two futures, a limitless future where we actualize our potential, where we have focus, where we do the things that are most meaningful to us, where we spend the time with the people who are most meaningful to us, that limitless future arrives because of a series of decisions and actions. And if we choose not to take those actions, over time, the drift line gets further and further away from that limitless future. And so we drift further and further into a state of constant reactivity. And the key to getting out of that constant reactivity is to make a decision that you want to jump over that intolerable red line. Thank you so much for listening. And of course, as I mentioned, if you do want to download the boundary setting tool, it is in my website. And at the end of this month, actually next week, I will be hosting a free quarterly Endures, Pause and Reset Summit. So a chance to reflect maybe on some wins for the first quarter of the year, how your leadership is going, how your energy is going, your vitality, how you're on track to achieve those things that are meaningful uniquely to you. Fully private, we'll be journaling, we will be presenting, and I will be presenting. And hopefully you'll leave with some really great insights, including maybe where you need to set better boundaries to do the things that are most meaningful. I'll see you tomorrow for more from Endures. Bye.